folks. It is Rob Brown in Memphis, Brendan Martin in Ocala, Florida, where it's always sunny and gorgeous. It's been a good season so far. Look, lot to cover today. Thank you, first off, so much for watching us. And do us a favor. Take your cell phone, take a picture of the QR codes. We're live on 8 channels, live streaming. So it's a very, it's live streaming podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Subscribe to all of our channels. It means more than you know. Share us and like us. We've got the greatest audience, very erudite, very smart. You know your sports. We deliver every day. That is our job, is to deliver for you. We're here for you.
Where the hell's my coffee then? Because they're not delivering that. Because I don't know where the heck it's gone.
The coffee.
Lost my coffee cup.
I'm telling you what, I'm glad I got, mine's got some hot chocolate in it. But we got Jordan Davis Hill, 247 Sports in Athens. They cover Georgia. Folks, he also does a wonderful podcast. You got to watch it. Junkyard Dog Podcast. We've got, after him, Gabe Kuhn, Memphis, ESPN 92.9, as well as Yancy Porter in Oxford. Nothing going on there. And Rodney Orr, Tighter Insider. It is a Tuesday, November 18th, 2025. And Jordan Davis Hill, Kirby's termed that Georgia job. I know someone wrote an article back right before the season. Is Texas the new Alabama? I'm like, no. Question is, are they the new Georgia? Georgia's strong. What you did to Texas was basically, maybe Sark is thinking about going to the NFL or something, but Kirby's guys play a full 60. They may not even play for the SEC championship, but who's playing better football than the Georgia Bulldogs right now?
Yeah, that was part of the conversation after Saturday's game with some of the players. Do you feel like you guys have peaked right now? And I think the scary thing for the rest of the SEC, the guys we talked to said, no, we still got things we can improve. They had a stretch on offense late in the third quarter, late in the second quarter, early in the third quarter, where the offense kind of stalled out. They had, I think, 4 punts in a row. And so there's still room for improvement, but they are peaking at the right time. I think that they've got things figured out. I think the biggest thing, and we talked to Quintavious Johnson, who's Georgia's starting outside linebacker. Mm-hmm. This was a young defense this year, and I think it took them a little while, not only for each guy to understand, hey, this is my bigger role, this is what I need to do, but for all those guys to learn to be on the same page with each other, to have that communication you need as a defense. And I think you saw that on full display against Texas. I think that this defense has the confidence to know it can go out there and make plays. They did it. They hold Texas to 10 points. The only touchdown drive they had was after a Gunnar Stockton interception where they had a short field. I don't know that you could ask any more specifically from this defense. And if you're getting ready to play Georgia pretty soon, I'd be worried, because I think there's some growing confidence on that side of the ball.
How many games has Georgia lost at home in the last 6 years? 1?
I think that Alabama game earlier this year, because before that you go back, and I think that's 2019 South Carolina was the last time that lost. Yep.
Yeah. All right. So you look at what Georgia did. They just dismantled. And Texas has all the money in the world. We know that. A $44 billion endowment. They got everything. They bought Justice Terry from down in Manchester, up on Pine Mountain, the 5-star who looked. That's the first guy that I would take off the bus, by the way. Don't be surprised if he doesn't make his way back to Athens. I'm not going to be surprised if Arch Manning doesn't make his way to Indiana or Georgia next year. I think what Georgia did the other day was emasculate Texas.
I don't know if he's coming to Georgia, because I think number 14 will probably be back at Georgia next year, Gunnar Stockton. Yeah. But I mean, it was interesting post game talking to Kirby. One of the questions that when I was in the post game, I had asked Kirby about that fourth quarter, 21-0 for Georgia. At one point, Georgia had 124 yards in the fourth quarter, and Texas had -4. And I thought it was really interesting. Kirby kind of took it. Every once in a while, you ask Kirby a question, he doesn't really answer your question. He just starts talking about other stuff. And he talked about physicality. He said, some players, I'm paraphrasing this, but some players, they want the check. They don't want to go hit people. He said, if you come to our place, you're going to hit people. And I think that, saying that after how the Justice Terry recruitment played out, I don't know that was a coincidence that he made that statement against, after the Texas game. And I mean, look, Georgia's a program that prides itself in going hard as hell during the week. And then they feel like, the thing we hear so many times when we talk to players after big games, they say, yeah, man, these games are nothing. Practice is where it's hard. Kirby's mentality has always been make practice hard so the games are easy. And they put those guys through the ringer. But the guys who make it on the other side, man, they show up and they make plays. And I thought that you saw in that fourth quarter, I don't know that you would say Texas just folded and quit, but you saw one team that did not let up, and that was the team we're talking about right now.
Well, I do think Texas did quit. And I think if talking to Dave Bartu so much, it's really made me think. Sark underwhelms the talent a couple of times a year, 2 or 3 times. And they have a lot of talent. Some of it's young. But I look at Georgia. What they've done is remarkable because what's the guy, Wilson, that transferred to Missouri, the edge rusher? What was his first name?
Damon Wilson.
Damon. I know it's not Dallas. At one point this season, I think in the 7th game, he had more quarterback hurries himself than Georgia's combined quarterback hurries among their front 7. Talk about the job that Kirby Smart, Glenn Schumann, and that staff have done with this defense. Again, you referenced it earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing in the last really 2 weeks, they're finally getting pressure. And I think that, going back even to Georgia's best defenses, Kirby's always said, well, it's not about sacks, it's about havoc. It's about making the quarterback uncomfortable. They really were not doing that early in the year, even when there were not sacks. The defensive line, I just felt like they were getting stood up and not being able to make plays. And Georgia continued to try to be aggressive. You would see the 2 linebacker blitzes, that double A gap blitz, and they just weren't getting home. I mean, go back and watch that Alabama game. They just never really got to Ty Simpson, and that's why he played so well, and that's a big reason why Georgia lost that game. But I think, again, it kind of goes to the point I was talking about with the defense earlier that, these guys are starting to grow up. I mean, looking at the Texas game, Joseph Jonah Ajonye, a Texas guy, I think he's from Conroe, Texas. He played really well. Elijah Griffin had some big pressures. Christian Miller, one of the proven defensive linemen, he had the pressure on the Arch Manning interception. He's almost in Arch's lap, and it leads to the interception. Gabe Harris, I think, probably had his best game of the season. I think this defensive line has just started to grow up. Now, you need to be more – you got to continue that. You don't just do that against Texas and then say, all right, well, that was enough. They need to continue growing. But, I think they finally started to take strides in the right direction with this defensive line. And those guys are going to be counted on these next few weeks. C.J. Allen, the linebacker, hurt his knee against Texas week to week. I've had people tell me that, given the injury, it's pretty much best case scenario. I think, if we're talking about the playoffs with Georgia, that CJ will probably be able to be back for that. But again, that's a guy you counted on to be able to get home on those blitzes. You're going to need other guys to have to step up around him because that will be a huge loss while he's probably out the rest of the regular season.
Yeah. Now let's talk about the running game. That's a big deal. Line of scrimmage league, it still is. When everybody tries to be different, they find out the hard way. Nate Frazier, talk about him, that running back room. It's not as deep as traditionally you will see at Georgia, but they are getting better, I think.
Well, I thought the fourth quarter, one of the unsung heroes was Nate Frazier. I mean, he just ran hard, and I think he broke the will of the Texas defense, especially that front. And, again, I mean, you look at Georgia's most productive games this year, they've leaned on that run game late. They've leaned on those guys to say, look, we got the ball, we want to go score, and really more importantly than anything, we want to kill clock. We want to make sure when Texas gets this ball back, that they are not going to be able to do anything with it. And I know we haven't talked about it, but I did want to shout out. It's sort of, not related to the running backs, but Rob, I'm still wrapping my head around the onside kick. That to me was one of Kirby's best calls as Georgia's head coach. I mean, he said, let's steal a possession right here. I think they were up 11 at that point, and it worked out. And speaking of the running backs, Cash Jones, who I know he drives Georgia fans crazy. He's always in on third down, and they're like, what is this guy doing? This walk-on from Texas. Why are we putting him in there? Got the onside kick. And, man, what a play. Did not see that coming. And I can tell you who also didn't see that coming. That was the Texas special teams.
Yeah. Georgia, at some point it's going to come down. You just mentioned special teams, kicking, punting, whatever. That's a third of about every game. Talk about that department.
Yeah. I mean, what was funny, Brett Thorson, that might have been his worst game at Georgia. It just and Kirby talked a little bit about it after the game, putting too much about the wind. They were worried about Ryan Niblett, who had a long kick return, but it got called back due to a hold. But him, Peyton Woodring, who had the onside kick, didn't have any field goals in that game, but I mean, just very, very reliable. And Zachariah Branch had some productive returns as well. Nothing really huge, but a few of them that gave Georgia really short field. So I always talk about on our podcast, the Junkyard Dogcast, when we talk about close games, when we start previewing some of these bigger games, let's make sure and talk about the third phase, because it's very, very easy to overlook it. It's very easy to not think about it. But, one muff or, again, one onside kick that goes your way, and all of a sudden, you're talking about an entirely different ball game.
Yeah. You got Charlotte this weekend and then Georgia Tech. And that's going to be down in the flats, but Georgia will just overwhelm. There'll be so many Dog fans there. It's going to be crazy. We remember last year was 8 overtimes. What right now has you concerned? The way Georgia's playing, it's probably going to be hard to find much, but what is it?
Well, I will say this: it's in Mercedes-Benz, so
that's right.
So that'll be nice and a different change of pace. I mean, really, the only thing when you look specifically ahead to Tech is stopping Haynes King, because Georgia Tech's defense is in a bad way right now. They cannot get stops. I think Boston College had 500 yards of offense. They put up a ton in a very close loss on Saturday there up at Boston College. So, I mean, the biggest thing, with Georgia getting ready to play Charlotte, I think really highly of Tim Albin, who is Charlotte's head coach, but they are struggling this year. I think they're 1-9. This week's about trying to get healthy and trying to stay healthy through this. And then the biggest thing is just going to be slowing down Haynes King. I think that, I have to imagine he's thought a lot about that game last year, how close they were. If he doesn't fumble on a third down right before the 2-minute timeout, I think Georgia Tech wins that game. So I think this defense, that Tech defense, man, it's in a bad way. I think Georgia will be able to move the ball, but it's going to be about getting Haynes King off the field, because I think Georgia will be okay, but you don't want to find yourself in a shootout, given just how well Haynes has played and how well he played against Georgia last year.
Yeah, and the way he runs the ball, he does so much. I mean, even in the loss against NC State, he had over 500 yards. He's an amazing player. He's been around a long time. All right, so what are you writing about? What are you going to be looking at that Georgia people and football fans need to know about? Maybe even some stuff we're not even thinking about right now, and talk about your podcast, Junkyard Dog.
Yeah, the biggest thing right now, we'll start working on some preview stuff for Charlotte. There won't be as much as usual just because of the one-sided nature of this game. Right about DeMello Jones, who, if you were watching that Texas game, man, he had a suplex in the first quarter. It looked like something out of WrestleMania. I had a story about that this morning. I thought that kind of helped set the tone for the defense. And just continuing getting ready. It'll be wild next week, a shorter week, because Georgia plays Tech on Black Friday. And we'll have a Junkyard Dogcast podcast on Tuesday afternoon. Just talk a little bit about the Texas game. Talk about what we expect from the playoff rankings. I think Georgia will move up to 4 and be in a really good spot, even if they don't wind up making the SEC title game.
Yeah, last year, the 4 teams that got the bye in the first round all went out, one and done. So I'm with you. Jordan Davis Hill, you are one of the best we ever have. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week as we prepare for clean old-fashioned hate. And just get the W against Charlotte. SEC needs it.
Sounds great.
All right, thank you. Let's go to the green room. Gabe Kuhn, this guy is a football player. I was talking last night to Brad Carson, was at the Touchdown Club. You know Brad, obviously.
Yeah, the old fearless leader at 92.9.
That's right. We were talking about you, and he said, man, the thing is, he loves football. I said, he does. And you started out as a producer. I've got my executive producer, Brendan Martin, down in Ocala, Florida. And I said, Brad, I said, he worked with Johnny Radio all the time. But the times that he would come in on Saturday morning, he wasn't asleep, slumped over. He was energetic. And I was like, when you talk football with Gabe Kuhn, who's from the suburbs of St. Louis, was it Brentwood or Ladue that you're from?
No, not out in Wildwood, West County.
Okay.
West County.
All right.
Yes, sir.
But we were talking about you, and I just said, man, he loves football. And I love listening to your show, 92.9 ESPN in Memphis. You cover everything, Grizzlies, Memphis, SEC, pro football. You started, 3 years at Memphis? Four.
4 years, 51 starts was the final tally, which was it was the record, until the next year.
Yeah.
Drew Kaiser from Alabama.
From Opelika.
From Opelika, he got 52.
Yeah.
By the time he graduated.
All right, so you played for Mike Norvell, and you know what he's like. So and what you made a good comment the other day. I love what you said about the Power Four and the Group of Five. Kind of our audience, we're SEC sidelines, but we cover SEC, Memphis. We cover college football all over the country. I've got a guest coming on tomorrow that covers Texas Tech, and he said, if you've ever seen that TV show Landman, the character that John Hamm played, he goes, that's Cody Campbell. And he said, Cody Campbell said, yeah, you can call me John Hamm. That's fine. But I want you to talk about the difference. You stayed at Memphis your entire time, got your degree from Memphis, and kind of as you see it, that the biggest difference between Group of Five and Power Four, because I went to the Memphis Tulane game a couple of weeks ago. That was some damn good football.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest difference is just generally what you're recruiting out of high school. I think for the most part, you're just not able to in this day and age, even at a place like Memphis, who has the most resources in the Group of Five, you're not able to keep guys year over year. I mean, Ryan Silverfield this year, I know there's a lot, you're here in the Memphis area. You understand the conversations that are being had right this second.
Yep.
So not a lot of people happy with Ryan, but he had to turn over that roster. There were 78 new players on it.
Yeah.
And you have to hop into the portal, and what is done to you by the big boys, the Power Fours, and sort of poaching your talent, you sort of have to do to the lower levels, and also you do to the SEC schools, but those are more of their backups, guys that didn't quite have a chance to get into the normal rotation.
Yeah.
At whatever position it is. So it's really just recruiting. But in the end of the day, top of the Group of Five, and looking at 4, 5, 6 there in the SEC, I don't think there's that massive of a difference. And I'm talking top of the Group of Five. I'm not talking regular old, ECU in the middle of the conference or UTSA in the middle of the American Conference. I'm not talking about that. But the top team that ultimately ends up in the college football playoff, I know there's a lot of people that seem to have an issue with the Group of Five getting that automatic bid,
Well, I don't have an issue at all with the automatic bid one for the Group of Five. Gabe, I know we lost it briefly. I'm for straight seed. Give me 1 through 12. Give me 1 through 16.
No, I hear you.
I don't want no set asides, no quotas, no nothing. Give me the best. I'm all about the best competition always have been. And I love, I know you are too.
Yeah, I am for the most part. I like access though, truthfully. I like a little bit of access. Okay. These programs like Memphis, like Tulane, like USF at the current moment, they and USF, I guess, is a bit of a tough example because 10 years ago they were able to schedule Miami and Florida and all the teams that they got scheduled this year. But they don't get to play these guys very often. So they never really get those head-to-heads ultimately. And I think it's getting smaller and smaller, the opportunities where these types of schools want to, throw a Memphis, throw a USF, throw a Tulane on the schedule, because it's just not necessarily something that works out for them. And in the day and age we're heading into with nine game SEC slates, I think it's going to continue to just shrink those opportunities. So we're gonna have to see what it looks like going forward. But going back to your original question, I don't think the at least with the top of the group of 5, I don't think the difference between those schools and the middle of the Power 4 conferences is that vast.
I don't think it is either. We had Ryan Silverfield on the show with us like Friday, October 3rd, I believe it was.
How about it?
I think it's the largest audience we've ever had for any show, 185,000. That he's a really good football coach. You played for him. He's been coaching since he was 18, went to the Bowl School down in Jacksonville, Florida. He's got big ambitions, but he's doing it at Memphis. And when he came to the Touchdown Club the following Monday, October 6th, he walked up to every single person in that room, thanked them for coming. He's just different. It's like I tell, when I got in the financial business a long time ago, one of the old fellas, Mr. Vance, Jim Vance, or Don, said, always sign a letter in the upper left-hand corner with your crappy handwriting because they'll know it's not some chain letter or some crap. But damn, he walked up to me and he said, what'd they think about me Friday? I said, Coach, come back on whenever you can. I mean, because you're a magnet. People really love hearing you. You know your stuff. Playing for him, he's an intense guy. But if you get a text from him, it's 4:15, 4:30 in the morning. He's already in the office.
Oh yeah, man. He's I'm telling you, he's up and running, like running, like taking a 3 mile, 4 mile run.
Yeah.
Every Thursday when I have him on the show over at 92.9, shameless plug there. Gabe Kuhn, go
plug,
7 p.m.
That's what we're here for. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
No, it is not a shameless plug.
Yeah.
I'll come on your show anytime. I love that show.
Yeah, but I record with him. The little trade secret there. But I record with him, and he's fresh. He's fresh off of his morning workout that I believe starts at about 5 a.m.
Yep.
And ultimately he gets done at about 7:30.
Yeah.
So and then he's about to go into his team meeting and do all that. So he's an intense guy, hardworking guy. He was a guy, when he first got to the University of Memphis, he used to run sprints with us. I mean, next time you see him, ask him about running super gassers with us out there and actually finishing them, where some of us, had our struggles and had to ultimately run afterwards because we didn't make our times.
Yeah.
But I try to tell people this all the time. Ryan is a guy who sort of deeply cares about his players. He's a guy who right now at the University of Memphis, I get he's much maligned. I get there's some fans that don't quite understand, but I think that there was a learning process for him as a head coach. It was his first gig ever. He takes over and immediately hits COVID, and then immediately has to change. Everything sort of changes with NIL. And I think the record he has, and listen, this is, I'll bring this all full circle here in a second. There's a record he has against teams above 500 that I think a lot of people reference, and they look at it and they say, this is bad. This isn't good enough. And maybe eventually it won't be. Maybe eventually the University of Memphis is going to have to move on, but the record is 12-19.
Yeah.
Now, when you break down that record into the last 3 years and sort of look at what it has been the last 3 years, 7 of those wins, so over half of those wins against teams over 500 have come the last 3 seasons after COVID.
Yeah.
And about, I think, less than a third, I think it's 7-7, about a third of those losses came, after the COVID and in the last 3 years when he has had better win totals. So it's like there was a moment in time where he just sort of had to learn on the job.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he's been allowed the grace that is necessary to work through those things and get out on the other side. Now we'll see if he's able to do that. Don't think he's going to get fired or anything like that. So he'll be back next year. It's kind of interesting to see how the University of Memphis and the football fans, forget about their history to a certain extent. Larry Porter, I was here right on the heels of Larry Porter. I remember how bad it once was. I was here for the first couple of years of Fuente. It was 3-9 and 4-8.
Yeah.
But I think he had to learn how to, get through it on the job, and he came in at one of the toughest times to possibly come in.
Yeah.
Where NIL, transfer portal, COVID, all was hitting at once. So I think he's done a good job the last few years. But tell a Memphis fan that, and they might smack you. They might smack you one. And also I do want to mention this because I think this has always been worth saying to me. He truly, and I mean this. I mean this wholeheartedly. Like, I know there's the Matt Lukes. I understand, Sam Pittman was an unbelievable offensive line coach. Both those guys, top couple in the country. Ryan, as an offensive line coach, when he was within that role, top 5 in the country as an offensive line coach. Guy's unbelievable. He's worked with professionals. Granted, he never played the position by any stretch of the imagination, but he's so good at teaching it. Yeah. He's so good at getting the best out of his players in those moments. I mean, the fact that at Memphis in 2018, he had a Joe Moore Award finalist offensive line.
Yeah.
And I think the average size across that offensive line was about 6'2", 275. I mean, it was not a big offensive line. I think that should tell you what you need to know about the guy and what he's able to do, at least in that particular role. But, Ryan, I've always appreciated him, and I think that's reciprocated.
Well, and I'll say, too, if you go back and look at John Wooden, legendary basketball coach, 14 years before he ever made the NCAA tournament. Look at Nick Saban's crappy record at Michigan State. He came to LSU. None of his staff members came with him. Worked out. We know that. It worked out. All right, got to ask you, let's look at you cover a lot. You're hearing it every day in Memphis, right down the road. Yancy Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline, will be on with us in just a minute. And the Lane Kiffin thing. What's your gut feeling? You've been there on a team when a coach was being pursued, Justin Fuente, who played at Tulsa Union High School. I was actually in Tulsa at a wedding party with my wife at the time, and it broke on the 6 o'clock news. Tulsa Union star Justin Fuente, 5-star, announces his decision up right after this commercial message. Of course, he chose Oklahoma. Right. And I told him that, and he goes, God, that makes us both old. I said, not really. I said, I got a memory like an elephant, my dad says. But talk about what it's like when your coach is being pursued, because that's happening. Brendan Martin and his dad, Buddy Martin, have GatorBaitMedia.com. If you ever want the best Gator coverage you've had in your life, get Buddy or any of these guys on. But tell us, because we got a lot of Gators watching and Rebels.
Yeah, let me throw this out there really quick, because you're going to get a kick out of this. My dad, when I was being coached by that staff, I came in, they recruited me. I was a blue shirt deal, so I had to pay for my first summer. Like I think you're allowed 25 recruits in a class. I was recruit 29. They were just trying to really change the culture, bringing a bunch of guys that they could develop. Yeah. But my dad called them the Oklahoma Mafia. It was Fuente. It was Vance Weiss, who went to Oklahoma State, played tight end for Barry Sanders. Played tight end with Barry Sanders, I should say. And then, Barry Odom. Barry Odom was the defensive coordinator on that staff. It was just a bunch of down-home dudes from the state of Oklahoma doing their thing. But when it comes to the process and how it looks, I think at Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin's situation is a little bit different, because it's still up in the air to a certain extent, because Ole Miss has become such a great job for him. And granted, he's created part of this. And also, I will give credit to the athletic department and Keith Carter. Like, they have given him just about everything he needs. I think it's easy to fall into this idea of, well, look at what Lane Kiffin's doing at Ole Miss. You guys should be indebted to him. You guys you shouldn't be angry that he's taking so much time with this decision. It's a tough decision. LSU and Florida are historically better jobs. You guys should, give him his time. He's done such a good job for you. But what I would say is that has been reciprocated, that love and that respect on the other side from Ole Miss and their front office at this point, because that's how we have to sort of term it in college football, and their athletic department in general. They have given him what he's needed. And he was persona non grata, quite frankly, still when he was hired by Ole Miss. He was Florida Atlantic head coach, and it felt like there was no other SEC team willing to take a shot on him in that moment. They did. They give him, in my opinion, like, you look at sort of coaches that have the most, moving and shaking ability in their particular athletic department, I'd say him and Kirby Smart are at the top of that list right now in the SEC. Mm-hmm. They're allowed to call the shots, make things happen for themselves. So, I think it's easy to fall into that trap of, oh, Lane, he's done everything for Ole Miss, but Ole Miss has done a hell of a lot for Lane. So this whole situation, it just seems to be a little bit much. And I said this yesterday on the show. I want to know your thoughts on this. if there was ever a time, because we're talking about $100+ million decisions, even more money than that on the line going into the future. Whether it's LSU, Florida, Ole Miss, like they have their decisions to make for their athletic departments, those football programs, or Fortune 500 companies.
Yeah.
I said if there's ever a time to treat this situation with a little more tender loving care and act a little less like Lane Kiffin, it would be right now. It feels like it would be this moment. Just, let's tread a little more lightly, maybe not troll as many people on social media, and realize that this is a massive decision for all the parties involved. But to the question you asked about what's my feeling at the moment, well, it's hard to feel anything other than he's going to end up at Florida or LSU. And I would say more likely Florida because of the Steve Spurrier connection and all that. So that's it's something to watch. I just hate the way it's starting to play out. It seems like it's getting a little dirty.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, well, if you can stay for just a second, Gabe. Great stuff. Gabe Kuhn. Catch a show every day in the afternoon, 4 to 7. ESPN 92.9 in Memphis, native of Wildwood. I think St. Louis has 32 German towns. I mean, that's how nice the city is. I used to work for A.G. Edwards. I was up there a lot for 8 years, Market Street and Jefferson downtown.
Nice.
Went to Ladue, and, of course, the Edwards family lived out there, and Lacleves Landing, and I love it. Yancy Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline. Catch it 6 o'clock Monday, Sports 56 WHBQ, and all over on Super Talk Mississippi. And Yancy, I don't know if you know Gabe Kuhn, used to be over at WHBQ with Johnny Radio, now got his own show. But we're talking about this Ole Miss situation, and I was at the Touchdown Club last night. If you think women at a garden club gossip, man, you should see the men right now, Yancy. It's worse.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is that Lane keeps everything so close to the vest that there's just so much bad information. Yesterday was the perfect illustration. Reports are that, Lane and his family and Knox and his wife are out in Baton Rouge while Lane's in the IPF. Layla's ex-wife is on the square and Knox is at school in Oxford. So I mean, it's just, and that kind of information, the information that gets out as becoming facts is why this is where it is to me, because I would say about 99.99% of the stuff that's been reported is completely inaccurate. And then it's taken as fact and is run off with on the message boards and social media and radio and everywhere else as that this chaos is going on. And it's just not the truth.
Yeah. Gabe, you're right there in Memphis. Memphis is an hour from Oxford. So your take on this with Yancy. Y'all probably have met before.
Well, I remember a bunch of commercials when I was at Sports 56, and then also ultimately I remember your Rebel Yell when it played. Yeah, my take on this situation is ultimately there's a lot of things behind the scenes that Lane Kiffin has to figure out before he ultimately makes a decision. And I think personal life. What Knox wants to do. He's got a great family situation there at Ole Miss, and it's been showing through since he's got there. Yeah. Everybody sees all the documentaries, the E60 piece that was done this year, all of that, and how much it's improved for him. So I think it's going to come down to just sort of his personal feelings on where he wants to live his life. And, ultimately where he thinks he can win easiest from. And to be honest with you, I think historically we'd immediately say LSU is the easiest. But I just watched a coach who was the all-time winningest coach or at least the current winningest coach in college football, Brian Kelly, fall flat on his face there. And it seems like you have a little bit more government intervention. It seems like you have a little bit more intervention from the powers that be in that athletic department. I think that's the same thing at Florida. So, I don't know what Lane Kiffin's ultimately going to decide. And I do agree with Yancy in the sense that, a lot of these things get blown up because of the persona he is, because of how big of a name he is in college football. He's become synonymous with the SEC, with what he's done at Ole Miss. Yeah. But at the same time, that report about Ole Miss yesterday saying, hey, we need some clarity. sooner or later. By the time we get to the Egg Bowl, by the time we play some postseason football, we're going to have some understanding. I get that as well. So I hope it doesn't play out nastily, because I've enjoyed, even though you probably know this, I don't see eye to eye with Ole Miss fans, Ole Miss football, never quite have. In the end of the day, I hope this plays out well, because it has been a nice marriage to watch, Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss.
Yeah. Yancy, I mean, it's the best of times ever I've seen at Ole Miss in my lifetime.
Yeah, and there's a lot of truth into what he was saying, is Lane has to figure it out for himself, and he's at fault too. He's had a policy since he's been at Ole Miss that he doesn't discuss contract extensions until after the season's played out, and that's fine. But then you got to keep a zipper on it, right? You can't fuel the flames and be a gaslighter on Twitter and put stuff out that leads you to believe that he's staying, and then maybe he's going, and he knows what he's doing. And that's what causes a lot of the chaos as well. And he's got to grow up. And that's what is kind of rubbed a lot of people wrong. It happened last time in 2022 with Auburn. And then, they thought maybe that was over, and he learned his lesson of the things that you do and don't do, and kind of know your audience. And it seems like he hasn't learned.
Yeah, it's frustrating. Gabe, if you can come back in, I was just going to let Gabe sign out, but I like the take that he's right. This marriage, Gabe is right. The marriage with Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss has been fantastic, and it's been fun to watch. And Gabe Kuhn, I think he lost his connection, but we're going to get Gabe back on 92.9 ESPN Memphis. Catch it Monday through Friday, 4 to 7 p.m. All's good. What's your Twitter handle, and how can they follow you on social media?
Man, I'm sorry for all the connection issues.
No problem.
At G_Kuhn, KUHN 71. Follow my show Monday through Friday, 92.9 FM ESPN if you're in the Memphis area. It's 4 to 7. And then if you don't have an Odyssey app, go download that. You can use the rewind feature. I'm on 4 to 7 or 92.9ESPN.com. You can do that.
Well, I love it, man. And it is a great show, people. You cover everything in the Mid-South, but you're connected nationally. So we'll do it again soon. Thank you so much, Gabe.
Appreciate it, Rob. Thanks for having me, man.
You bet. Yancy, last night at the Touchdown Club, I really couldn't find anybody really that didn't, it's kind of, it's frustrating if you're an Ole Miss fan. You're having the season of your lifetime. And it's not just Ole Miss. It's a lot of schools. Tulane, their football season is kind of being pulled away because, John Sumrall's alleged to be the top candidate at Auburn. But you pick the schools. It's out there. Again, AI being what it is, sensationalism always being there. You just reported the facts from Oxford. And then there behind the curtain, door number 3, is Jimmy Sexton. His role in this, Yancy.
Yeah, Jimmy's not a very loved man at a lot of places, right? It's not just Ole Miss that people get frustrated with Jimmy Sexton. It's fans from across America. And I don't know how much Jimmy's playing a role in this. I really don't. I personally don't think Jimmy's leaking out bad information. I just think that Lane plays it so close to the vest, and he doesn't let information out to anyone, not even probably his staff. And so then the media has a responsibility of trying to put up information for all these fans that want to know. And there's just so much bad information going around, about the thing of that Ole Miss gave him an ultimatum that he's got to make a decision to the Egg Bowl. I don't know 100% if that's inaccurate, but I would be surprised if Keith would not let him coach in the Egg Bowl. I'd be very surprised. I think there's just so much bad information that is taken as facts, and fans run with it, and they're getting frustrated. And then it doesn't help when Lane is putting up all these gaslighting tweets up as well, and it's just kind of like the perfect storm.
Yeah, again, spend a lot of time in Oxford. I might be down there this week. my Ole Miss friends, and I love them to death. I've got a ton of them, and it's going to be a kick in the swimsuit area to say the least if he were to leave. And then you're going to the playoffs. The Egg Bowl is going to be intense. That's the nastiest rivalry. Georgia Tech, clean old fashioned hate. Okay, Iron Bowl, it's intensity, but Auburn and Alabama fans are all married to each other. That's what makes it really intense. It's Ole Miss and Mississippi State. They don't really like to be around each other, and
Yes,
that's different.
yes, it's not a good time for this to happen, right? I mean, if the playoff indicator says that there's a 50-50 chance Ole misses the playoffs if they lose to State.
Yeah,
There's a lot of good two-loss teams that are in the running, and you don't want to put yourself in that position. And you
no,
don't want this to become a distraction for the team, and they're human.
yeah,
And for the players, you don't want them to be wondering what's going to happen. There's rumors going around that their coach won't even coach in their Egg Bowl. I'm sure the staff is telling them, ignore it, but it's hard to ignore it. And again, we don't know if that's even true or not. I don't think my gut instinct is that's not true. Would Keith love a decision before the Egg Bowl? I'm sure he's told him that. But
yeah.
will he not let him coach in the Egg Bowl if he doesn't make that decision by then? I just don't think that's true. But you don't know if those players start having doubts in their mind and they become distracted.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, Yancy, our good friend Rodney Orr from Tider Insider. Folks, it's only $48 a year. Just remember that. $48 a year. And the fan forums are the best out there. Nobody covers Alabama like Rodney Orr and Tider Insider. You can also catch him Tuesday nights with our good friend Gary Harris, WVUA Channel 23, Tider Insider TV, 6:30 p.m. Central. Do not miss this program. Rodney, how you doing? Welcome aboard, and thanks for sharing your time with us. Let's talk Alabama. You take the ball and run with it. I want to hear what you got to say. Rodney, are you there? Yancy, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay.
I can
Rodney,
hear you loud and clear.
okay, Rodney, you got us? Okay. He'll jump back on here when he can. Hope he's got his connection right. But Yancy, look at Ole Miss, look at season ticket sales, look at donations, look at the Loyalty Foundation. When you and I were on last Tuesday with our good friend Lauren Meadows on this very channel, the Lowdown with Lauren Meadows, 9 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays, we talked about it. He said the Gator Collective, according to his numbers, has less than 1,000 members, whereas the Grove Collective is over 15,000. So it's always about the money. Ole Miss will go toe-to-toe with anybody. So this situation's what it is. You got the win over Florida the other night. That was a great win. It's a conference win. This season, the way it's playing out, you're off this week, and then you got to go play. It's Black Friday. Is it that? No, it's Thanksgiving night. Thanksgiving night is the
No,
Egg Bowl.
no,
It
no,
is Black
Friday.
Friday. Yeah, it's okay. It's Black Friday. Okay.
I always start Thanksgiving night, but this year they flipped it to Friday.
Yeah, and I was sitting there thinking, Mercedes-Benz Stadium is Georgia Tech. They paid Georgia Tech to move that game over, but that's a big rivalry. What's it going to be like in Oxford, Mississippi, if they're hosting a playoff game in the first round? What put it up there with double decker, the Writers Festival, and where's it going to rank? Like nothing we've ever seen.
Yeah, I think they want some clarity of what's going to happen with Lane before then.
Yeah,
I now if it drags on all the way till mid-December, that would be different, right? So I do think there'll be clarity with Lane before that home playoff game. Uh, will it be before the Egg Bowl? My gut tells me no. I think it'll come a couple days after the Egg Bowl. And that's the shame of this is everything's really distracting, from this run they're on and trying to chase a national title and is playing, as good as arguably as anybody in the country right now. They're just like Saturday, for an example, they really were on their C game. they were not on their A game by any means, and really not on their B game, but they found a way to win, right? And that's what great teams do, is when they're playing on their C game, they can still win those games. And Ole Miss is finding many different kind of ways to win, whether it's offense, defense, running the ball, passing the ball, stopping the run, stopping the pass. It's something different every week. So they're showing the traits of a team that can win a national championship. But from a fan perspective, it's so much distraction right now because of Lane.
Yeah, and that's what I hate for the Ole Miss fans. We got a lot of them that watch this show. Here is this dream season, and now you're on the 10-day clock. It was 11 last night, so I assume it's 10 days now. Looking at the SEC, you said there's a chance, even at 10-2, that Ole Miss would not make the playoffs. The SEC? Frank Duffy said Friday, dream scenario, 7 teams in the CFP. But I go back to what Lane Kiffin said: no set-asides, no quotas, no guarantees, nothing. Throw all that BS out the window. Give me the top 12, top 16 teams, regardless of conference, P4, Power 5, or whatever. Don't you agree with that? Just let the best fight it out, like Gladiator.
Yeah, it's still a system that is not fixed, right? They did fix it where the top power four, conference winners are not automatically the top 4 seeds. But you're sitting here, and I love to include everybody in the country, but automatically having a G5 program is where you start. These teams aren't even ranked in the top 50, and you're going to make sure that they're in the playoffs. Give me a break. If they're top 20, an exclusion with that, take a G5 program. But we're down to like taking teams that right have no business in the playoffs. So you got to start there. And then, like you said, there should not be any automatic qualifiers. You right now it should be you take the 12 best teams, and that's where it's broken right now. Is they're trying to do this, participation trophy. Everybody gets a trophy kind of philosophy, inclusion, and that's where the system's kind of broke right now.
Yeah, and I don't know. Speaking of that Gladiator, you remember that movie in 2000 with Russell Crowe? It's my wife's favorite movie. The great scene. I'm talking about the competition. They let them fight it out. I just think about that. I'm Maximus Decimus Meridius, commander of the Northern Armies, husband to a murdered wife, father to a murdered son, and I will have my vengeance in this life or the next. That's how you feel when it comes to the playoff. Yancy, the possibility that Ole Miss will not be in the college football playoff after the season that they've had, and that's hard to stomach. And I think it makes anybody that loves college football wonder what would we be thinking. That's not a good situation to have. And we'll have Yancy be back on with us in just a second. But I'm looking at the playoff rankings tonight. They're important, but the ones that matter the most are the final rankings, which determine the 12 teams that make it into the playoffs. We got a lot of football to be played. Folks, if you're starting to get sad that college football is winding up, we got over 2 months left of college football. It's going to be okay. Yancy Porter, you're back. You missed my rant about Gladiator, but
Yeah.
the playoff rankings tonight, you'll be watching those. Where did you expect Ole Miss to come in? And do you think the
6.
SEC? Okay, 6. All right.
Yeah.
Frank Duffy said on our show Friday and on his great podcast on this channel, Gold to Go. Yancy, we got to get you doing something on this channel. You're really, really good. I'm just throwing that out there. And I wish I could say you would be sponsored by the Beacon, but I speak posthumously of the Beacon. That's all I got to say.
know it.
But Yancy, this is it gets real personal with me, with every fan base, because I try to find out everything I can about them all. Some I know better than others, but it's like having 16 children, but I know Ole Miss really well. God forbid for Ole Miss Lane Kiffin leaves.
Yeah.
What's the business succession plan? Who would be your likely choice to take over? Because so much infrastructure has been developed and built over the last 6 years, like I've never seen at Ole Miss.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be set up for somebody to take the wine, so to speak, and run with it, right? It's
Yeah.
there's going to be the infrastructure and the foundation will be right there in place for the next coach to win and win big. So that's the good news for Ole Miss. Just get some clarity on who's going to continue coaching this team. I would think that inside the IPF, Joe Judge and Pete Golding, there's rumors that Pete doesn't want to be a head coach. He wants to just stay as the defensive coordinator. If that were true, then I think Joe Judge would be a prime candidate there to kind of keep the band together, so to speak. And, Charlie Rice, there's some people think that he would follow Lane to wherever he went if he were to leave. And then some say he needs to be, on his own and he would stay at Ole Miss so he can actually be his offense. So that would be the one angle would be to keep everybody together and keep the coaches together, keep the team together. And then if they were to go outside of the IPF, there's rumors that Summerall with his past connections with Ole Miss could be a prime candidate. And then after that, I really don't know. I don't know. I think that's where you would start with would be those three names.
All right. So there is a business succession plan. People don't plan to fail, but they usually fail to plan. But that's and folks, if you don't know Yancy has covered Ole Miss for a long damn time, and he does a great show Monday nights called Rebel Yell Hotline on Sports 56 WHBQ in Memphis, 6 p.m. Central, all over on Super Talk Mississippi. Also has a great magazine called Oxford Magazine. That's a special place. All right. Yancy, look, Rodney's having some technical difficulties.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what happened, but I want to ask you some big picture stuff about,
Yeah.
college football as you see it. Gabe Kuhn talking about the offensive line. Get back to that. It's hard to have a line that can run the ball down people's throat. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. The state of the offensive line in the SEC and college football compared to 5 or 10 years ago. A, B, C, D, or F?
I'd say C. I mean, we've gone over this that when the transfer portal started, that era, and players, the O line has to be in sync. They need to have not only games together, but years together. And you just don't see that many places anymore.
Yeah.
Now, the difference with Ole Miss personally this year and last year's they've been healthy, and it's
Yeah.
hard when you have two or three injuries. Ole Miss had both their tackles hurt for the majority of last year. Their center was hurt for the majority of last year. So when you're missing three out of your five pieces, there's not any unit in America that can withstand that. They've got lucky this year. They played the whole season together. So when you get teams that are able to sustain the injury bug and avoid it, they play well as long as they got talent too, right? So that's an issue that's all across of America. There's just not that depth where you've got guys, used to you would redshirt your first year, second year, maybe get in a few snaps, third year. If you were really, 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 really talented, you would play, and then most of them your fourth year. Well, you had 4 years to develop, and now offensive linemen they don't stay around for 4 years before they play because everybody wants to play.
Yeah.
Nobody's sitting 4 years anymore, so it's just everything is. What I tell people is like pre-NIL transfer portal might as well been when they were playing with leather helmets. It's just a whole different game now.
Yeah. And the offensive linemen are almost like stunt doubles in today's world. That's where it is. You talk about a C, and I'm Matt Stinscombe calls it pajama football, but you're not seeing the teams that can line up, run it down your throat. But I tell you what, Lacey, your running back, Saturday
Yeah.
night,
He's
that
special.
son of a gun was a 55-gallon drum of whoop ass. I mean,
Yeah, and
I mean
while
that guy's
Rodney's
woo. Yeah.
yeah, while Rodney is not on the line, he would agree with everything that I would say of what's going on with Alabama. You know, that's part of their issue, right? Is they're having trouble running the football, and now everything relies on how Ty Simpson plays. And Ty hasn't been on the last three games. They got away with it for a couple games. One kind of like Ole Miss did Saturday, right? They went on their C game, just found a way to win, but they weren't playing on top of their game. And then obviously against Oklahoma, Ty again was off, and they were playing their C game, and Oklahoma was playing well enough to beat them. So
Yeah.
when your offensive line is not able to produce a run game, it can cause a lot of issues, and that's what we saw with Ole Miss last year.
Well, and I'm sitting there looking right now at can anybody name? Remember, we could name the studs on the offensive line in the SEC. You can't do that anymore. That's and the running who are going to be your all conference running backs? I mean, Ahmad Hardy, he's just like Kenneth Gainwell, who was the number 127 ranked running back in America out of Yazoo City when he signed with Memphis, and he's still in the NFL. Ahmad Hardy was nowhere on anybody's radar, and he went to ULM, and he's at Missouri now. He
Another
rushed
Mississippi boy that was
another,
overlooked by the Mississippi teams out of Lawrence County.
yeah, South Mississippi. I mean, come on, God, there's a lot of talent in that state. But we're gonna go a few minutes long. Brendan said we're having, in case you hadn't noticed, the Cloud Fair. There's a major technical tsunami going on right now, and I think that might be why Rodney was having some issues coming on with us. But I look, Yancy, at the college football, the big picture. The interest is there. I mean, coast to coast right now. Here it is, November 18th. Everybody in the country is paying attention because there's 12 playoff spots available. And if we go to 14, when we go to 16, it's just going to get better. And a lot of people think 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, college football was a bigger, it's never been like it is now. And we got YouTube Friday night, came back on after 14 days of a blackout. We got them back on. And, I tell you, it is just frustrating to watch and to hear some of the comments made. But, Yancy, everybody in the country is paying attention to the games. It's a special time. I mean, the portal, the NIL are what they are. But man, the TV ratings have got to be really strong.
Yeah, it's just opened the door to so many more schools. And like right now, you have 12 playoff spots available, and you got another 12, 14 teams that feel like they've got an avenue to make the playoffs if they win out. So when you've got 25, 27 schools that feel like they've got a chance to win the national championship, and you're entering around Thanksgiving, that's just unheard of. On normal years when the old BCS where there were two teams,
Yeah.
there might be 4 or 5 teams that felt like they had a chance.
Yeah.
Before the BCS, again, when you're talking about maybe 5, 6 teams. So you just open the door to so many different programs, and that's causing so much more interest.
Yeah, it really is. Look, we'll go ahead and wrap it up now. Major technical tsunami out there. Yancy Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline. Great stuff as always. And we will do it again next week. And Rodney will work through this. But hey, bottom line is it's going to be exciting to watch those rankings come out tonight. Yancy, anything breaks on the Lane Kiffin story on your end, you've got an open spot, open mic, always on our show, okay?
You bet.
All right,
God
thank
bless.
you. God bless you. Have a great day, my friend. Hey, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Look at our sponsors. Landers Ford open every day of the week except Sundays. Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company open every day, including Sundays, starting Black Friday weekend. Rumble Boxing, how you fight is how you live. And hempforpros.com. Check them out. The gummies for sleep, for pain, they've got you covered. Hempforpros.com. Everybody have a great day, great night, and watch this channel as often as you can. Thank you so much.